world of iRacing. 60+ Racing Adventures is the iRacing league for drivers 60 years of age or older. An incredibly long-running league here on iRacing and here on RaceSpotTV. We join the Super Formula Light division midway through the season. So excited to be bringing you 2 races live on RaceSpotTV of 60+ Racing Adventures from Road America. David Haynes with Dylan Coyle, Hugo Lewis in production as we get ready. My goodness, this is an exciting track with an immense amount of history, and this is where we've been so far this season. Things all began June 18th at Okayama, then they've been to the Red Bull Ring, Silverstone, Portimao, Fuji, and here at Road America midway at Round 6, Manicourt, Road Atlanta, Mugello, Barcelona, Mount Panorama still to come before a season finale September 3rd at Monza. You'll see that live on RaceSpotTV as well. Championship standings have Todd Scholl in the lead at the moment, Dylan, and it's still so closely contested up top at this halfway point.
Yeah, 100%, and a good afternoon, good evening to those in the European time zones. Excited to bring you the action here on Race Spot. This is going to be a tight championship throughout the remainder of this season. Of course, like you said, David, we're only at the midway point, so there are still plenty of opportunities for incidents to occur that send somebody spiraling down the leaderboard or going right back up it. However, Scholl's advantage, it does seem to be an advantage that can continue to be built up upon. Road America, though, it's a different beast.
It certainly is. It's a long track, too, at almost, or is it just over 4 miles? It's really high average speeds in many places. It's got a long front straight, long run from turn 3 to turn 5 underneath the Sargento Cheese Bridge, long run towards Canada Corner that Todd Scholl navigates now. Qualifying, he's around towards the end of this outlap, and then they'll all get 2 flying laps in qualifying. But Todd Scholl, based on the championship standings, is the driver to beat. He comes out of the final corner, this signature rise onto the front straight. The timing line is all the way up here where Barney's waving the green flag for him at the start-finish line. And this is where a flying lap of Road America begins. It's a long lap, and in this 10-minute session, you're not going to be able to hang around if you're going to get your outlap and 2 flying laps in.
Yeah, absolutely right about that. This track, it really does not give you any room for error if you do make a mistake. And if you do something like that, turn 3 right there. I hate calling it turn 3. Turn 2 is that tiny kink just after the first corner. But if you make a small mistake there, you're going to have another 2 minutes to think about it before you get another opportunity to set a lap time.
You simply can't come to Road America without talking about the official corner numbering around here. Yes, somewhere between turns 1 and 3. There is a kink net labeled turn 2. Somewhere underneath that Sargento Cheese Bridge is a corner named turn 4. Turn 5 was a big braking zone back there. We came up the hill, came through the hurry downs. We approached the carousel now. Incredibly long right-hand corner in this Super Formula Light car. You've got plenty of grip and downforce. You've got a fair bit of horsepower too, but a corner like carousel, you just carry so much speed through there. You carry so much speed through this kink here onto the straight towards Canada Corner. Your apex speeds through fast corners are just so high in this car, and it's all about maximizing that.
Yeah, truly it is. And in race pace, we're going to start to see the draft come into play because these straights are just so long. It's going to give more of a potential for moves to be made in the heavy braking zones as we see, Scholl with a little bit of a back end slide gets it back tidy. Let's see how quick this time is. Already 1:51. It's going to creep closer to the 2-minute mark. Will he go underneath it?
So some other lap times from the first runs coming in. The drivers will continue on to their second flying lap, and with those 2 laps combined, the best result's going to set that grid. Gerhardus Jorgensen, no time yet. Roberto Catalano's on top. Paul Stump, Pete Thomas, Ragnar Wisloff. Todd Scholl only went to 6th with his first flying lap. But it's normally the case that continuing to build the tyre temperature onto the second flying lap nets more speed. Mike McCormick also with no time yet. He comes down into the braking zone at turn 5, halfway across the curb, making his way to that late apex from 6th gear down into 2nd, and then back up to 4th underneath the Corvette bridge. It's blind turning in over that crest, particularly how low in the car your sight line is in these junior open wheelers.
It's also quite blinding looking at the livery right there, because it's quite chrome, is it not?
Yes, Rust Racing is perhaps oxymoronic, not to be confused with galvanic. So no time yet from Mike McCormick. It's because he went out there and actually went off track on his first flying lap. So this second of 2 flying laps for Mike McCormick is all or nothing, whether he's going to start potentially on the front row of the grid or at the back of this 20-car field. So he's got to be a little bit more circumspect on this flying lap through Canada Corner in 3rd gear to go up over the hill again. And at the moment, the benchmark time is a 1:56.4 to beat. That is about to come tumbling down when the next group of drivers come through, completing their second flying laps.
Yeah, and that's a good shout right there. 5 drivers actually on their second lap went off track, or at least in their first laps as well. McCormick over the line, and a time that is set right there to put him P4.
Yep, Roberto Catalano stays at the top for the moment. Paul Stump got very, very close. Toltrell jumps up into 7th. Ragnar Wisloff to 5th just there. Peter Holstrom will go through the final corner and carry speed up over the hill. Long run to the timing line. It's often seen races being decided between that final corner and the start-finish line. Gerhardus Jorrison goes up into 6th. Doesn't look like Peter Holstrom gained any positions completing that second lap. There's only a few drivers left that could go on to improve. Oyvind Anderson has just crossed the line, completing his second lap into 17th. Mike Grandy might have gone off track on his second flying lap. So actually very close to locking it all in. Ulf Olsen, Russ Addy, Barry Hills out on track have completed their second lap. And Gregory Marks hasn't completed a lap in this qualifying session, so I don't think anyone's going to be able to take pole position away from Roberto Catalano. Paul Stump gave a really good effort there, 18 thousandths of a second away. Both of them 4/10ths of a second clear of 3rd place, where Ragnar Wisloff has ended up.
Yeah, and with how big this track really is, it does lead to more separation between drivers in the leaderboard, just by courtesy of there's more track length to make up or to lose time, as Olsen goes just a little bit off the corner exit, which you should be able to do there at Canada Corner. This is a fun off-camber, uphill, downhill section before you go through the final corner, turn 14, and do this run up the hill. Or not.
Yeah, Ulf Olsen cutting across to the pit entry. It's a long and wide pit lane here at Road America, and it's a pit lane speed of 72 kilometers an hour, or as Dylan would know, at 45 miles an hour. Russ Addy's continuing to get his practice in. 9th looks like where he is going to start from.
Yeah, and speaking more on that pit entry, it does lead to some last-second decisions being able to be made because you are going uphill. It's not really coming off of a sweeping corner, say an oval or anything like that. You kind of can make that last-second decision to pit, and I don't know if we'll see any late calls like that, but considering it's a 4-mile lap, you might at certain points.
So just a minute left on the qualifying clock, and when that's completed, we'll have our grid locked in for one of 2 races today for 60 Plus Racing Adventures from Road America. Race 2 will also have its own qualifying session, so we'll get to see everyone go qualifying again ahead of race 2 later on as well. You can see the long shadows of the trees as you race through the forest. There's trees to the right, trees to the left, but just a tiny bit further to the left. The back straight actually follows the course of a railway line out there.
You know what? I didn't even know that, and I should, right? Oh, look at that. RaceSpotTV with a little bit of a slide. Yeah, that's going to be a lap time that he is not going to be thrilled with, so he goes off track, and that should do it here in qualifying.
RaceSpotTV strays from the train tracks there and bottoming out over the curb a little bit. A real concern, I think, for these low-slung open wheelers. The grid is locked in for a rolling start, and the front row is going to be Roberto Catalano and Paul Stump. Row 2 will have Ragnar Wisloff and Pete Thomas, Mike McCormick and Gerhardus Jorrison on row number 3. Barry Hills and Todd Scholl there 7th and 8th, with the top 10 completed by RaceSpotTV and Ulf Olsen. Franz Josef Sturm in 11th, and Mike Grandy has qualified in 12th, Peter Holstrom 13th, Jack Turner in 14th, Douglas Beasley in 15th, Eugene Clark in 16th, Oyvind Anderson 17th, Steve O'Malley 18th, and JC Hayes, the last driver with a qualifying time set in that session, in 19th. We're going to see if Gregory Martin inside of the front row.
Yeah, and it's a long front straight, and once you get through 1, 2, and 3 for that next long run down into turn 5, you've got a lot of opportunities to finish off a move if you're unable to make it or unable to defend it going into the first corner. It should be quite an exciting set of races we've got here today, David.
Absolutely, it should. Truncated formation lap takes us from the back straight just before Canada corner, just through the final few corners before we'll be able to get this one underway. So action just moments away from Road America. Catalano and Stump on the front row. Championship leader Todd Scholl back in 8th on the outside of the 4th row by the looks of things. Pace car's going to make that sharp turn to pit entry. Roberto Catalano's going to hold pace car speed of about 100 k's an hour heading up over the hill. Then they'll have vision of the starters stand. The green flag's waving. We're underway, and with that jump from Catalano, it's still a long run to 1. The rest of the drivers behind could slipstream closer towards him as they head towards turn 1, but Catalano making a definitive move to then go in towards turn 1 ahead of Stump, ahead of Ragnar Wisloff in 3rd. You've got to look a tiny bit further back to find drivers still racing side by side as the tyre pressures come up and the drivers find their feet, racing wheel to wheel for the first time tonight at Road America. Out of turn 3 and onto the straight, heading down towards turn 5. Not a whole lot of moves through the opening corners. Mike Grandy moving ahead into 11th, Oyvind Anderson into 16th. Catalano just checking his mirrors as we race side by side underneath the Sargento Bridge.
Yeah, really sharp start for Catalano. You see right here Mike McCormick on the outside. Oh, look at that. Big contact in the front wing. Go on sliding in to the turn 5 runoff area. What happened there?
Ulf Olsen making side-by-side wheel-to-wheel contact as they went into the braking zone for turn 5, sending him up into the air and then sliding off into the runoff. He's picked up a fair bit of damage, and it's that thing that happens down into turn 5. You're wondering, is the car on the outside going to use all of that extra paved runoff? I think the driver on the outside didn't, and Oyvind Anderson's managed to gain some positions all out of this opening lap. Mike Grandy seems to have a little bit of damage, and you can see Ulf Olsen, of course, with a significant amount of damage. The driver looking best out of all his opening laps, opening corners. Roberto Catalano 8/10 clear of Paul Stump, with Ragnar Wisloff still running in 3rd, but we've had some drama on lap 1.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some drama, and here's some more movement going on. Pete Thomas fighting right now with Ragnar Wisloff, and these two drivers still side by side. Oh, there was some contact, and off track goes Thomas, now going to be swarmed by more drivers. McCormick into P4.
So Thomas trying to take Wisloff's 3rd position away. It hasn't worked out for him at the end of this lap. Wisloff still in 3rd, McCormick up into 4th. This looks like Gerhardus Jorrison has a really strong run onto the front straight, just looking to pull out of the slipstream. Same's happening for Todd Scholl and RaceSpotTV behind. So heading into turn 1 for the second time, we'll get side by side here, side by side deeper in the pack. Thomas looks like he holds on to his 5th, runs a tiny bit wide out of 1. RaceSpotTV managed a massive double overtake here. He's jumped ahead of Scholl and Barry Hills, trying to keep that gain through turn 3. He gets a good run there as Scholl's just a little bit wide.
Yeah, you know, we were talking before the race about the championship fight. Scholl in the lead by 11 points over Catalano coming into today, but with finishes like this, first for Catalano, right now still fighting in P9 for Scholl, this could be a swing.
So this is a battle pack right in the middle of the field, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th and 11th, with Russ Addy having made those spots up ahead of Barry Hills and Todd Scholl. We'll take a look. So this looks like it's first Mike Grandy, is it?
Oh,
into
man.
turn 5, and it's just wheel-to-wheel contact. One car climbs and leaps up over the other.
I find it hard to say, to put blame on either one of those drivers. It's just hard, close racing. Not much movement in the wheel right there for Olsen, but, you know, that's kind of that's just a difficult incident.
One of the places with the most paved runoff here at America's National Park of Speed. So Olsen managed to just slide across that and then get into the pit lane where his car has been repaired, but he runs 19th at the moment. 19 cars starting at Canada corner. Steve O'Malley versus Douglas Beasley and Eugene Clark heading up over the rise. O'Malley looked a little wide there, battling with Clark. Beasley's closed in behind the both of them. 2 laps completed, and Roberto Catalano, oh no, drama in the final corner. O'Malley and Beasley coming together.
Oh, be careful coming back on track. Yeah, exactly what I was going to say there. That was dramatic pictures. That's race ending, I'd say, for both of them almost.
Both of them are going to come to pit lane, significant damage, and they'll look to get back out on track in this race, Beasley and O'Malley. Further up the fields with Mike Grandy and Jack Turner, we take a look at what happened. Driving front spins, does the right thing, you'd say, looking to hold the brakes, but in a situation like that, picking away through the smoke, it's tough to react in time as the other car slides onto the racing line.
Yeah, that just does not feel good when you're fighting for positions. You see some other cars in front. Oh man, just nothing you can do. Nowhere to go. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, when you're just sort of 2 car lengths back off someone who gets sort of a little bottomed out on the curb, loses it late in the corner. Everything looked hunky-dory and under control until get just a little bit past the apex, bouncing across the curbing, and at that point your reaction time is very, very limited. So we've had 3 cars through the pit lane for repairs at this point, leaving us with 16 cars undamaged and racing. It's Barry Hills in 7th behind Gerhard Jorgensen.
You know, more on that, David, where we were talking about, you know, mid-corner, right around there. I feel like it's harder to avoid a mess mid-corner than it is heading into the corner. You're already committed at that point. And if there is a spin in front of you, that you're just kind of stuck nowhere to go.
Massive slipstream on the longest straights here at Road America, seeing exactly how much Barry Hills was able to gain on Gerhard Jorgensen and the difference in straight line speed at the end. Everyone in 60 plus racing adventures is just looking for good racing round after round with a familiar people that they can trust and that you can grow to understand how they race. But there's also a team's championship at play here, and so Jorgensen and Hills form Anglo-Dutch Racing. No prizes for guessing which one's Anglo and which one's Dutch. Mike McCormick's just moved ahead of Ragnar Wisloff for 3rd, so Wisloff's fended off a couple of challenges for that 3rd place from Pete Thomas successfully, but now Mike McCormick closed him and gone ahead into 3rd place. It seems like no one in qualifying or in racing can match the speed that Catalano and Stump have got. Stump's losing a chunk of time. I think he's been wide through the previous corner and is now 2 seconds behind Catalano leading. Maybe Mike McCormick does stand a chance of getting up and challenging Paul Stump.
Yeah, and on that topic as well, McCormick was, we haven't really seen him in clean air for a good bit, so let's see if he can take some sizable chunks over the next few laps out of that disadvantage to Stump. I mean, even with that being said, there is a fight back already from Wislov, and look at that, way deep into the corner. That's going to set them up side by side.
Yeah, he went way deep into Saskatchewan there at Canada Corner. Too far out wide from McCormick. Wislov back into third, opening up more gap between them and the top two. Wyvern Anderson dropping down the timing and quickly fights on three ways for this top three. Pete Thomas with a double slipstream, massive straight line speed. He's just going to follow Mike McCormick along. McCormick's looking for the inside at turn one. Can't make that stick, but it leaves him exposed then to Thomas in fifth. Great battle there, third, fourth, and fifth. Teammates Barry Hills in sixth and Gahardis Yorison in seventh. Definitely smell an opportunity to try to close in on that. And so too does Russ Addy, who's made a move this race into eighth. So between third to eighth, this could get very, very exciting. And I think this is going to be Wyvern Anderson, wide through the grass, spinning, hitting the inside wall and doing a lot of damage to his car.
Man, I feel like Anderson's going to be pretty upset with himself after that one. Felt like he could have saved it mid-corner, but put maybe a little bit too much throttle into it to get it back straightened out. But, of course, that led to the front-end damage that he took right there. Working on lap 5 of 14. And you're right, David. This is quite a phenomenal setup for a battle from third on down in this field. It's going to be interesting because I feel like these drivers are quite well matched.
And the slipstream does so much work. I've been keeping an eye on some of the straight line speeds, and at points, Pete Thomas at the end of some of these straights has been 6 k's an hour faster than Ragnar Wislov, or as Dylan Coyle would say, 4 miles an hour hamburger. And therefore, it really, towards the tail end of the straight, you begin to get this massive run up at the car in front. You come off the final corner, maybe at a similar speed, a couple of car lengths back, and by about halfway down and you get up into 6th gear, then it's just a monumental advantage that you're able to get. It sort of sticks these cars together in their packs like magnets.
Yeah, and it's also an interesting thing because of all the elevation change here at Road America. I'd have to think a little bit more about the physics of it, but when you're going uphill versus going downhill, as we see a look down the inside and an easy move made there from Russ Addy. When you're going uphill in the slipstream, how much more does it help you versus the car in front's disadvantage from having to not only slice through the air, but also to chug up the hill as compared to going downhill, like in the run to Canada Corner?
It does always feel like an uphill enhances the strength of the slipstream, like at the Nürburgring, in a couple of places heading uphill. We'll see. So certainly that little uphill on the pit straight accentuates it a little bit. Barry Hills had a really good look at Pete Thomas into turn 5 this lap. And so we've seen a couple of moves happening. It's a great racing track when it comes to the contest, the battle, and being able to race side by side and make moves and then try to defend them and fight back in other places. It's what we love about Road America, and Barry Hills had that opportunity, didn't quite work for him. Now going to try to carry as much speed as possible in 6th gear through that kink. I think these cars, compared to stock cars or other things, are really handling that very well. Using all of 6th gear, Barry Hills gets a couple of car lengths for free in the slipstream there. So Ragnar Wislov, Mike McCormick, Pete Thomas, Barry Hills, none of them can afford to slip up here. Eugene Clark, unfortunately, has had a little bit of a slip up. You can see from these sort of side-on angles, you are an inch off the ground, and these curbs, if you get the center sort of plank part of the race car on those apex curbs, it can rotate you around very quickly and easily. Barry Hills is in that slipstream again, Dylan.
Yeah, right back into this slipstream right here and closing quickly, but decided against making a peek down the inside, going to try and save that in the run down to corner number 5. I mean, when you're right here, it's not necessarily the worst idea to try and hold off on a move because you know you're going to get the slipstream coming out of turn 3 as long as you've got a good runoff.
You can tell why so many fans bring their folding chairs and park them in the shade of the trees at turn 5. It's a great overtaking opportunity for this pack and for the next group. Todd Scholl, Gerhardus Jorrison, Franz Josef Sturm have been battling it out as well, just behind here. And so much of that happens at turn 5. McCormick ran a tiny bit wide out of turn 5, kicked up a little bit of dust, but critically sort of kept the steering wheel relatively straight and just gave himself a little bit of space to rejoin rather than turn sharply and maybe spin out trying to come back onto the pavement. It keeps him in this fight in 4th place. Roberto Catalano has the fastest lap of the race in the lead of this race. So while we watch so much great battling in the mid-pack that 60 Plus Racing Adventures can be quite commonly known for, approaching the halfway point, give credit to the amount of speed that Roberto Catalano seems to have here at Road America.
Yeah, genuinely. I mean, ever since the drop of the green flag from Barty, it's been a stroll in the park right now for Catalano. Not only that, of course, his advantage during qualifying, it was absolutely paramount. We haven't seen him have to fight in traffic, right? So I still think he would be faster than most of the drivers here if he had to deal with traffic. How about being faster than Pete Thomas? That's what Barry Hills is hoping to do. Inches ahead. Will he get the move done? Going to 1, I think, pretty easily.
Really well-timed move from Barry Hills. Minimal risk, maximising his advantage of the slipstream down the front straight. Barry Hills moves up into 5th. If he's going to keep that, he's going to hope to move a little bit further up the road and get into the slipstream of Wisloff and McCormick. A tiny bit of gaps just opened up there. Does leave Barry Hills vulnerable to Pete Thomas trying to come back at him underneath the Sargento Cheese Bridge, heading down towards turn 5. Thomas has got the inside here, and he'll look to go back into 5th place, measuring his braking just perfectly, and a perfect return of serve. You've got those 3 long straights here, and that can happen so easily. You make a move in 1, you get passed back towards 5, and now Barry Hills will look to stay close again, as he's done in the previous laps, maybe for a run towards Canada Corner.
It's really, oh, look at that, a little bit deep going into turn number 8. So it's really about if you spend a lot of time going side by side, that's going to hurt your potential to gain additional positions out in front, because you almost work in tandem, right? If you get a little bit of draft, if you give a little bit of draft, you both continue to exceed the speed that you would have usually otherwise. But if you go too wide through something like Canada Corner or any of the quote-unquote faster corners like this 12, 13, 14 combo after Canada or including Canada, it could end up hurting your trek forward. So I don't like the idea of helping out other drivers, but I also like the idea of putting yourself in a better scenario by the time the race ends. And sometimes that's by working together in the slipstream.
I think Pete Thomas is trying to break that slipstream towards turn 1 to try to hold on to 5th place. Gerhardus Jorrison ran wide off the final corner. Franz Josef Sturm moves ahead of him in this battle between 9th and 10th. Franz Josef Sturm of Germany, Gerhardus Jorrison of the Netherlands, as it says now in the new iRacing system, with flags as nationality instead of iRacing clubs, where Jorrison previously would have been Belgium, Luxembourg, Netherlands, and Franz Josef Sturm would have been Germany, Austria, Switzerland. Jorrison's going to look back into turn 5, but not with enough conviction down the inside there to be able to outbrake Franz Josef Sturm. He's going to keep that 9th place just for the moment. Todd Scholl's 2 seconds up the road from them. You see him as the next car, not really closing in a whole lot on the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th battle that we've been keeping our eyes on. But just a tiny mistake from Jorrison, a good move from Franz Josef Sturm. He moves to 9th.
Yeah, not too far in front. Still giving a little bit of a slipstream, but it is starting to close down as the gap ever so slightly starts to grow. But this battle right here for a 10th place, or I should say a 9th place spot, it's quite exciting to watch. And wouldn't you know it, David, but we're closing in on the final third of this race.
Time flies, and the dust in the air here is from Barry Hills. He's just gone wide. Taking a look at the movers and shakers throughout this race. Well, your top three right now is the top three from qualifying. Things have not always been smooth sailing for Ragnar Wisloff, though. He's been up and down in that top five. Pete Thomas, one spot down. Mike McCormick, one spot up. But you're looking at drivers like JC Hay, Franz Josef Sturm, and Russ Addy for your big movers. But one's going to be taken back from Franz Josef Sturm. Here comes Joris, much tidier through the final corner than he was a lap or two ago, to move back into 9th place.
Yeah, it's looking a little bit better right here for him as we look at the position gains throughout the field, and it hasn't been the race pace that Jorison would have preferred. Has lost 3 spots in this race so far. Only one other driver in the top 10 has lost any positions other than Jorison. That's Pete Thomas, just down 1. McCormick passed him earlier in this race. But I'll tell you what, Stone is... yeah, what's going on there?
Between Barry Hills and there's Pete Thomas, stopped on the outside of turn 5. Big damage to both cars. Barry Hills and Pete Thomas dropping back big time. Ragnar Wisloff in 3rd, Mike McCormick 4th. So Todd Scholl, Gerhardus Jorison, Franz Josef Sturm, they're all going to move up a couple of positions. This is what happened down at turn 5. So looking at Thomas, loops around, and whoa.
Man, I mean, it's hard to say in the blink of an eye to just, hey, throw your brakes on, because he almost was able to save that. It was just unfortunate timing again for driver in behind, similar to that incident in turn 14 earlier in the race. Not much, nowhere to go. Not much you're able to do to avoid that kind of incident, but that does take out 2 front runners in the race today.
It does, remembering that at a point Pete Thomas was challenging Ragnar Wisloff for 3rd place. And now he is much delayed in this race and on the tow hook. Franz Josef Sturm's up into 8th. He crosses the start-finish line there in 6th gear, continuing to pick up speed as evidenced by extra lights on the shift lights coming on the dash there, falling behind Jorison, who's caught Todd Scholl big time. I think Scholl had to slow down a little bit coming through the damaged cars in turn 5. Let's let Jorison and Josef Sturm close up. Here's Jack Turner and Peter Hallstrom. I think Jack Turner's just pulled off a move, so he's into the top 10 now. Jack Turner is, of course, probably the name that Hollywood script writers would give to an American road course racer.
Honestly, you were absolutely spot on about that. I was actually going to say that that incident to the cars in front with Barry Hills and Pete Thomas, it's actually, it really helps out Todd Scholl's damage limitation in this race. Gains 2 spots up to 6th position. Catalano, of course, is the runaway race leader right now. It's his race to lose. So, I mean, 6th place to 8th place with how tight this championship battle is right now, that could end up being a very important few points.
Drivers ride the carousel, but they've got no time to put their hands in the air and say we, because it's getting to crunch time in race 1 of 2 for 60 plus racing adventures from Road America. Positions and points to be decided. Roberto Catalano managing a 5-second race lead from Paul Stump, then another 5 seconds to Ragnar Wisloff in 3rd, who's managed to mostly shake the slipstream of Mike McCormick in 4th. Russ Addy up into 5th, but the battle is 6th, 7th, 8th. Todd Scholl, Gerhardus Jorison, Franz Josef Sturm. We've been told before that, sure, at about a second behind the car in front, there's a little bit of slipstream, but from about 3/10 behind, it gets super powerful. And that's the zone that Franz Josef Sturm finds himself in 8th behind Jorison at the moment. 3 laps to go in this one. You'd really want to avoid making too many mistakes.
I really love all of your sayings, by the way, David. Going around the carousel and yelling "we." Can't do that quite as easily as these drivers would like. But this is a big slipstream going into 5, taking a peek down the inside, just not close enough to make a comfortable move. Is going to reset and hope to do it all again, but potentially going into Canada corner.
A couple of beautiful camera angles around here, a few of them demonstrating that maybe even America's National Park of Speed could do with someone with a ride-on lawnmower going around, just trimming it a little bit. This is the closest battle on the racetrack at the moment, heading into the final few laps. Scholl, 2 positions gained in this race. Franz Josef Sturm, 3 positions gained in this race. Gerhardus Jorissen's actually down 1 from where he qualified in 6th.
Not close enough, I don't think. Yeah, not close enough. Did not have really a good run coming out of the carousel, which hurt the long speed down that straightaway to get that position done for Sturm. But this battle is not over between Scholl, Jorissen, and Sturm. These 3 drivers, I mean, I could see any of them in different positions than they are in now. Russ Addy is not completely out of the woods yet here either in Elkhart Lake. With just 2 laps to go, I would say positions 5 through 8 are anything but figured out yet.
We've seen how easily a little mistake, dipping your outside tyres in the grass, cutting too much at some of the curb and bottoming out the car can spin you out and maybe take you out of this race effectively as well. So it's about pushing but knowing your limits in these closing stages. Todd Scholl 6th, Gerhardus Jorissen 7th, Franz Josef Sturm 8th. Scholl might look at this and go, well, qualified 8th. I'm in 6th right now. We just got to bank some points at this stage. It's a comparison lap to lap between 7th and 8th. Suggesting Jorissen just beginning to pull away, and I think he's close to getting that slipstream on Todd Scholl. If you think about half a second, or maybe 6/10 as the magic, that's where Jorissen's just starting to get to in this 3-way fight.
Yeah, 100%. I think I don't even think we're considering it anymore. I think it's actually there and applicable to this scenario, to the situation. Slipstream is going into full effect right there. Look at that run that Jorissen made over the course of the last 3 laps in general. There must, I know we were talking about Scholl being a little bit slowed down by some of the incidents, or at least the incident in front with Thomas and Hills, but I think we're really starting to see it become a factor heading to the last lap of the race. And by the way, Catalano just took the white flag.
Exactly, we begin the final lap. Barney got great technique, great muscles. And Roberto Catalano's got 6.4 kilometers more to try to seal the deal on race 1 and make this an incredible championship fight at the halfway point of 60 Plus Racing Adventures Super Formula Light League. Todd Scholl, his main competitor in this championship right now, has Gerhardus Jorissen 7/10 back. At 6/10 back, we didn't see the slipstream doing a whole lot for Jorissen, so keep an eye on that, but certainly close enough that it puts pressure on Scholl versus Jorissen. Franz Josef Sturm there in 8th. Mike Randy and Jack Turner closing up a little bit for 9th and 10th, all to play for on this final lap.
Yeah, these positions are anything but figured out yet. However, the passing opportunities, they will close up quite quickly. Once you come out of turn 5, it's really hard to make a move work if you're not alongside the driver going into turn 12. So these are setup corners. The carousel, it's a setup corner, but you've got to get a good run off of it.
These cars and these tyres, they just keep delivering. Keep an eye out for a fastest lap of the race potentially on this final lap. There's a few drivers that have just set PBs on the previous lap. They've got so much to give across a whole race distance like this. Roberto Catalano might be angling for a new fastest lap of the race on the final lap. Gerhardus Jorissen will be angling for that slipstream if he can get it, but here is Catalano. We've not seen a whole lot of him, but that's because in qualifying he was the man. From lap 1, turn 1. He was the man in race 1, and he's going to lead every lap on his way to victory. He's probably going to bag the fastest lap of the race too. A dominating performance from Roberto Catalano to win at Road America.
That was quite outstanding for the Italian driver right there, and not a foot wrong, not a wheel movement wrong, just perfect. I'll tell you what, Wisloff almost caught up to Stump, just 2 seconds behind. McCormick in 4th, with Addy getting 5th. Here's the run for Jack Turner, the default Hollywood American road course driver name, as David put it. That'll round out the top 10.
Ragnar Wisloff with a personal best lap of the race on the final lap in his pursuit of that top 3. It's a massive lap here, so quite a few of the cars that had damage and went through pit lane have remained on the lead lap, but in cases like a minute and a half or further behind the race leader. So the last cars on the lead lap, we're going to see Peter Holstrom, JC Hay, Ulf Olsen right here, but Douglas Beasley and Oyvind Anderson have remained on the lead lap, and they're even yet further behind. Got a couple of F1 tribute liveries happening, but for Douglas Beasley, he must be an Alex Palou Chip Ganassi man, because this is not an F1 tribute livery. No, that is an IndyCar for sure.
You know, I must be thinking 10 years ago, because the first thing I think about is I think Ryan Hunter-Reay with that livery. I know multiple drivers have had the yellow and red kind of DHL looking stripes, but I just think Ryan Hunter-Reay when I think that.
Yeah, of the early DW12 era for sure. Here is Oyvind Anderson. He's going to be the last driver to take the checkered flag, and that will seal our results on race 1 of 2 for 60 plus racing adventures. Roberto Catalano, the fastest lap of the race, leading every lap from pole position and taking the win. That is the kind of race Roberto Catalano was looking for. Paul Stump and Ragnar Wisloff join him on the podium. Mike McCormick in 4th. Russ Addy from 9th on the grid to finish 5th. That's a good race for him, ahead of Todd Scholl, Gerhardus Jorrison, Franz Josef Sturm, Mike Grandy, and Jack Turner completing our top 10. Then Peter Holstrom and JC Hay were the last drivers left to have a clean race, or at least a clean car. Ulf Olsen through the pit lane finished 13th. Douglas Beasley and Oyvind Anderson as well, 14th and 15th. Steve O'Malley, Pete Thomas, and Eugene Clark through their damage, mishaps, and misadventures, ending up a lap down. And Barry Hills, I think, sustaining enough damage at some point that he ended up multiple laps down. Yeah, it was with the contact at one point. I think he might have parked it at that point. Beautiful slow-mo look at the checkered flag, and Roberto Catalano will have been so pleased to greet it. In a moment, we'll be hopefully pleased to greet some of our drivers.
Hi.
Roberto Catalano, the victor at Road America. You win, and just every box ticked, perfect. How do you feel?
Yes, I feel very good. I fear the slipstream in this track, and the start for me is crucial. I do a good start. Paul is near to me, but every lap he cannot gain. And I have confidence, and I have a gap that I can win.
Absolutely, a perfect drive with, like we said, fastest lap, lead every lap, pole position. Qualifying, it was close. It was less than 1/10 of a second, but in the racing, you looked quite a bit quicker than Paul Stump.
In qualifying, I do a great mistake in lap 2. My time is lap 1. There is a significant gain in lap 2 in qualifying, and for this I fear that I cannot do the pole. Only one milliseconds I do the pole, but I was lucky. I was very lucky.
Well, very lucky in qualifying, but very good in the race. Your fans, your teammates, they're watching, they're cheering you on. So maybe, do you have a message for them in Italian?
You are very kind, and my fans are not habituated to my win. Then I can comprehend your things. Sorry for my English, it's very bad. I hope to drive better.
I wish I could speak Italian as well as you can race, and because you are the winner from race 1, and we'll see you hopefully in race 2. Good luck, Roberto.
Thank you.
Go. Race winner Roberto Catalano, and Dylan will get to 3rd place Ragnar Wisloff.
Yeah, standing alongside Ragnar Wisloff, and I've got to say, it after the first few laps, Ragnar, and that battle that you were having in the first half of the race, it seemed all about trying to cut down that disadvantage to Paul Stump and P2, and you almost did that. You feel like if it went a few more laps, you would have had 2nd place, or at least a good battle for 2nd?
Probably a good battle. The draft is very strong here, and it reaches quite far back. So if I'd had maybe a second, if I had been a second closer, maybe I could start to chip away. But there wasn't enough laps, and it was good fun in the first half of the race. Unfortunately, on lap 1. I went back and looked at the replay. I think there was some contact, but I think it was net code between Pete Thomas and myself. It's a narrow part of the track. It's difficult to go too wide there, but it happened.
So, you bring up the slipstream and the powerful effect there. So we were discussing maybe it's a half second. Where do you think you start to really feel the effects of that draft and get reeled into the car in front? Is it a half second, 1 second?
Well, it also has to do with the exit that you get from the corner. But Mike was closing in from maybe 7/10 back. He didn't catch me, but he was certainly closing in. So it's strong. It's not strong enough to be able to pass, but it's certainly strong enough to cut the deficit down to maybe a couple of tenths if you're 7/10 behind.
Awesome. And going into race number 2, anything different, any approach that you're going to make that's maybe a bit different from this race? It's just this race, but a little bit different, right? So not much should change, but maybe you've got a different idea.
No, I don't think there's much you can change. I think, I made a mistake on my second lap. In qualifying, so maybe if I had been, 1 place further up, it could have had an impact on the result, but I had fun during the race. Both Roberto and Paul were quite lonely in their races. At least I had some company, and it's much more fun to fight than to just sit there and do hot laps.
All right. Well, hey, Ragnar, congrats on the podium finish. Maybe we'll see you another step or maybe even 2 above in race number 2.
Who knows? I'll certainly try. Thanks.
All right. Not a problem. David, we've got another race coming up, and I'm quite excited to see if it's going to be any different than the Catalano runaway that we just saw.
Well, with another qualifying session to go along with it, Roberto Catalano thinks maybe he can put even more time on the fields in qualifying. He'll need to be precise and perfect, and he'll need to be precise and perfect in the race again if he's going to clean sweep Road America for 60+ racing adventures. We take a little break here in our coverage, and we will return with qualifying and racing for race 2, 60+ racing adventures Super Formula Light League from Road America. for a second time at Road America for 60 plus racing adventures, the Super Formula Light League. The original 60 plus Racing Adventures League have branched out into many other cars and leagues, and as I usually say, more people turn 60 every day. Race 1 won in dominating fashion by Roberto Catalano. We're about to see if anyone can put a stop to that here at beautiful Road America. The checkered flag is waving on the warm-up before we'll get into the qualifying, set the grid for race number 2. David Haynes with Dylan Coyle here on RaceSpotTV as we bring you live unfolding coverage. 10 minutes, 2 laps. That's what everyone's going to get from this qualifying session, Dylan.
Yeah, and it's kind of a weird thing, right? We just saw a pretty solid race, a runaway victory for Catalano, and everyone's got to do it again. So it's not going to be the exact same. It never is the exact same in a multi-race format. However, we have trends now set, and we have expectations for certain drivers. They'll have expectations for themselves. We'll see what happens. I don't think we're going to get the exact same thing.
You can put a comma in different places in the sentence, "we're real cheese people," to get a different meaning. My favorite is, "we're real cheese people," which is when you're addressing a group of people made out of cheese, but insisting that you're also real. This warm-up lap is going to be pretty important. We heard from Roberto Catalano, and we know from history and form that the tyres on these Super Formula Light cars, they do just take a little while to build the type of temperature that gives you confidence. So you've got a long out lap here, but even then, the second flying lap, still quicker than the first, as the first builds yet more temperature and confidence. There's a look at the weather conditions, same as race 1.
Yeah, and the race conditions, it's relatively, I wouldn't say cool. 85 degrees Fahrenheit is not necessarily cool, but it's not a scorching hot track surface, so it's going to be better for tire longevity. Obviously, we're not looking at anything like a pit stop, or we saw a personal best being set on the last lap of the race, so not really much to worry about, more just conditions on these opening out laps here, and quite cutting the corner almost right there is exactly what we saw. We'll see this run up the hill and start of a flying lap. Lap number 1 for the 99 machine.
Yeah, Mike McCormick trying to race his way onto the podium in race number 1. So much speed in these cars. Fair bit of downforce, all things considered. So 4th gear through turn 1, 3rd gear through turn 3, and then a really quick upshift into 4th. On flying laps right now, Ragnar Wisloff, Mike McCormick, Franz Josef Sturm, Roberto Catalano's just begun one. Todd Scholl, Jack Turner, and Ulf Olsen. Likewise, McCormick's got to look a long way down the road to his braking marker. Diving downhill elongates the braking distance here, using all of the road that you're allowed to, and quite slow in 2nd gear at the apex before heading back uphill. He'll know that he's got 2 laps to set his best time, and that the best from the car and the tyres will come on lap 2. So you don't want to take too much risk here on lap 1, because there's really actually not as much to gain.
Yeah, there really isn't. I mean, it's an installation lap, right? It's a fast version of a shorter road course, short oval installation lap. You just want to get a good time down and see how much further you can improve on it on lap 2. Go around that kink right there. If in a faster car, you would see a lot of lifting going on through there, or at least a lot more hair-raising cornering in that run down to Canada Corner. I wouldn't quite say that turn for McCormick was Saskatchewan, but I don't know, maybe Manitoba. What do you say about that, David?
Northwestern Ontario, maybe.
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah. Agreed.
It's about to see the first times stick to the board, and Mike McCormick's going to be one of the first lap times that we see. And it's 156.7. First offerings from the rest of the field are going to take a second to come through. Mike Grandy just in behind him in 2nd. 1-2, 1-2, mic check on the timings at the moment. Douglas Beasley behind them with a real slow banker lap. Gerhardus Jorrison, no time just yet. Ragnar Wisloff into second. Ulf Olsen into third. Of course, it's Roberto Catalano, the driver to keep our eye on, as even his banker lap is quicker than the rest.
Yeah, that's just mighty impressive for Catalano. Another driver, of course, to take a peek at, see where they are in this order, of course, is your championship leader going into today, Todd Scholl. Scholl has not yet set his lap time. I wonder if there was an off track at all by him.
I think there was no banker from Todd Scholl. Douglas Beasley pitting after just his first lap. Interesting. We're going to see and follow with Gerhardus Jorrison here to close out this lap for the 966. He's just a little off sequence and about a minute behind where everyone else is in their program at the moment. He'll get all his laps in, but it'll be one of the last qualifying times we see, because this is going to be his first of 2 laps. Well, Mike McCormick's already 70% of the way around on his second lap. So for Jorrison, 157.1. Definitely a base to build from as it puts him into 4th, but soon those times will all move, change and tumble. Barry Hills to the kink onto the back straight. Does not look like he's got any troubles keeping the foot absolutely pinned. Grip giving comfortably, heading towards Canada corner, 0.5 of a second behind Roberto Catalano in the first run. In the second run, it looks like he's really just driving this 95%, 98%, driving within himself, because I'm not seeing this being too overly exuberant, but should still be tracking for improvement. Bit of an understeer through the final corner. Going to see some other times come through shortly.
Taking a look at some of the off-track adventures, and a lot of drivers, at least on their install lap, went off-track. That's why we're starting to see a lot more set times here on lap number 2. And Todd Scholl is just under 0.6 behind Catalano's lap, who, of course, improved. Look at that. Bob Cohn with a flyer of a lap time goes up into P3 above Scholl.
So we know that Gerhardus Jorrison's one of the last times we're going to see. At the moment, Roberto Catalano has almost half a second on Mike McCormick and Bob Cohen, who's come into the race for race number 2. So with Todd Scholl 4th, Barry Hills, his teammate, in 5th. Gerhardus Jorrison has a chance to displace them here to move up from 6th. Even his bank lap good enough for 6th. It should be a good chance for improvement. That is just kissing the grass out of the final corner. He'll go full power. He'll run middle of the road here. This is not the line of someone who I think expects to improve massively. But for Gerhardus Jorrison, it's because he won't. 0.2 missing. Lap 2 versus lap 1.
Yeah, goodness me, that was a surprising result. You've got to make a mistake to have a slower second lap than first lap, or maybe you just are the tire whisperer on your out lap and you got them ready to go on lap number 1. Ulf Olsen is trying to cut down that 1 second and some change gap he's got to Roberto Catalano. Under 2 minutes left in qualifying, but most, if not all, drivers will be finishing it up in the coming moments. Olsen with the run out of turn 14 underneath the NTT sign. That is there for IndyCar. 1:57.3. That gap does not come down.
Well, I don't think we're actually going to see any more competitive times out of qualifying. Russ Addy, the 1:11 in 1:1, has done his 2 flying laps, and he's coming around on what's either just a practice lap or in lap.
You missed the gap, the 1.1 gap right now.
Yeah. Bet on that one, roll the dice. Surprised that Roberto Catalano only went 1/10 quicker his second lap compared to his first. So it's expecting a little bit more gain lap 1 to lap 2. But maybe he put a whole lot into that lap 1 and there just wasn't much more to get out of lap 2.
Russ Addy does really does not improve either. So, yeah, maybe there was a lot of time in that outlap for these drivers to get their tires up to spec, up to temp. 40 seconds left before we do get rolling with the grid for race number 2. A good first race. I can't see anybody beating Catalano.
Well, he's even more dominant in qualifying this time around. He was lap by lap perfect in race number 1, so everything points towards him being a very, very tough bar to clear. And I think the pressure got to some people in this qualifying session. Ragnar Wisloff throwing it off the road on his second lap. Same too for Jack Turner, JC Hay, and Douglas Beasley. We saw some other drivers fail to improve on their second lap. And so I think everyone really put it all out there, and none of them came up close enough to Roberto Catalano. He'll be the pole sitter for race number 2. 0.45 of a second ahead of Mike McCormick. Bob Cohen will be in third, just ahead of Todd Scholl. It's an improved qualifying position in race 2 compared to race 1 for Todd Scholl, but I think by gap, it's actually no closer to Roberto Catalano. Teammates 5th and 6th on the third row for the rolling start.
We continue rolling back and currently have Wisloff, Olsen, Stuem, Grandy. Your rest of the top 10, Addy, Anderson out of row number 6. And of course, Hallstrom, Turner, Hay, Clark, and Beasley. 17 drivers in race 2. And these times really do show, David, that that gap because of how long this track is. 4 miles here in the state of Wisconsin.
Hello to all of our cheeseheads watching.
Except Packers fans.
People.
Go Birds. Go Eagles.
Go Binghamton Rumble Ponies. Catalano and McCormick, front row of the grid. Catalano's already shown a little bit of his hand in race 1, so McCormick might be expecting him to go early on the race start, or at least he'll be alert to that possibility, you'd think. Bob Cohen and Todd Scholl, an interesting row 2. Drivers rolling, trying to get some tyre temperature in, but don't get a whole lot of opportunity on this truncated formation lap behind the Porsche iRacing safety car. I'm a big fan of the sedan, but you can also have the BMW, the Ford Mustang, the truck, other options. Final corner. Catalano on the right-hand side of McCormick on the left. Teammates Barry Hills and Kahardis Yorison all together on row 3. A little bit slower this time, and Catalano drops the loud pedal early. Bob Cohen is awake to it. It'll be another 14-lap affair at Road America for 60-plus racing adventures. Roberto Catalano's the one that they're all going to try to beat. McCormick's coming back in the battle for second. He's got the slipstream off Catalano. That clears him of Bob Cohen before we head into turn 1. Ragnar Wisloff already trying to make some moves after throwing away his second lap in qualifying. He's gone down the inside of Kahardis Yorison, and now Yorison in orange and silver looks to strike back. Doesn't work into turn 3. As on the cold tyres, Wisloff sails round the outside and gets a good run onto this straight underneath the cheese bridge, heading towards the big braking zone of turn 5 and the scene of drama for Ulf Olsen in race 1. In race 2, he's in the pack here in 8th place and looking to mind his P's and Q's.
Yeah, look at that way push. The elbows coming out there, going down into turn 5. That's a loss of 2 positions, I believe, for Todd Scholl. Just in the span of a couple corners, tries to fight back, cannot get back to the inside line. This is turning into a worse afternoon or evening for Todd Scholl.
Ragnar Wisloff picks up another one and went around the outside of Kahardis Yorison in turn 3, moves ahead of Todd Scholl in turn 5, and he's already up into 5th, chasing back-to-back podiums at Road America and 60-plus racing adventures. Roberto Catalano will have an eye on the gap to Mike McCormick in second. It's out to almost 9 tenths, just enough to begin breaking that slipstream. on the back straight here, about to go on to the front straight, and they'll have the run to turn 5 once again. It will be a tough ask to completely break that slipstream. Bob Cohen's done well with his third place grid position to still be running third into Canada Corner. The battle is on throughout the field. Other gainers on this opening lap so far: Mike Grandy, Russ Addy, and Eugene Clark.
Pretty standard lineup. I'd like to see if Bob Cohn can continue to climb up, maybe past McCormick, or at least give us a good battle. Catalano, 1.2 second gap after 1 lap of racing here at Road America. Look at this, a big dive down the inside for Mike Grandy on Ulf Olsen. Will he get the move done? Still side by side, a fight back on the outside. Nothing doing there, though. And Mike gets swallowed up by some more drivers in behind, David.
Russ Addy taking advantage to have a look down the inside of turn 3. Olsen's a little bit wide, so whoever's got the best run on the straight can be challenging at the end down into turn 5. Olsen, I think, just managing to do enough, but as he battled side by side with Mike Grandy, I was getting a little bit of flashbacks to race 1. Thankfully, they've managed that cleanly so far, using the slipstream perfection. Tiny lock up down the inside as Russ Addy goes by Ulf Olsen, Franz Josef Sturm, and Oyvind Andersen just behind. Still, everyone so close in the early part of this race, yet to have the dramas of a 14-lap race split them apart, and the slipstream in full effect, giving us that kind of pack racing from these junior single-seaters.
Yeah, this has been some good racing so far, and so far it's been a little bit more, I'd say, clean than we saw from race number 1. Still time for that to change, but all of these drivers running nose to tail, front wing to rear wing, pretty close to each other. This is going to be a big run already side by side. Oh, into the grass through this turn 13 kink into turn 14, or I should say turn 11 to turn 12 run, Canada Corner. A move done by Wislav.
Bob Cohen's
off.
Bob Cohen's been off. He's dropped from 3rd and still dropping down to 8th, 9th. Here he is. Now just settling in behind Mike Grandy. Not a whole lot of damage visible to that car, but he must have had a mistake at Canada Corner. There was dust, dirt, gravel in the air. Oh, forced off the road in a way, you might think.
Yeah. I mean,
Barry Hills was coming through for the podium.
There's getting your elbows out, and then there's taking an elbowing penalty in the sport of ice hockey. Oh, look at that. A big slide through the corner right there for Bob Cohn, and or I should say Mike Grandy trying to get by Bob Cohn. I mean, this is like bump drafting here at NASCAR.
They simply couldn't get any closer than that through turns 1 and 3, you wouldn't think. Bob Cohen continuing to have to fight on the back foot here. Mike Grandy is going to get to the inside for turn 5. Looks like he might get ahead. Cohen's well positioned to try around the outside. Oh, and Grandy's going to spin. How much contact, how much damage for him? Cohen will hold that spot. Everyone else will go past Mike Grandy, who I think might have just... he's missing a front wing there, I think.
Yeah, that is front wing gone right there for Mike Grandy. You know, he was really desperate to get the position. Goes down the inside, slides a little. No, he just completely took himself out of it. Actually, no front wing loss right there. I thought that's what we saw. I don't think there's any contact with the outside wall. Or I should say inside at that point.
Did he reverse and hook the tire barrier? He was squeezed to the inside there.
Oh, there was contact.
Front wing. Yeah, on the tire bundle, just a tiny little graze. But yeah, to the inside there, taking too much of the curve, bottoming out the car. Easier to do while the tire pressures are low and the ride height's lower. Grandy just, Martin Brundle would say, what, a little rush of blood to the head or something?
That's exactly, I think, what we saw right there for Grandy. I mean, he smelled blood in the water with Bob Cohn right in front. We saw him sliding the rear tires a couple corners before that happened. Desperation can lead to a bit of a lapse in driving, and that was just too early on the throttle. Tires were already loaded up from that 90-degree corner, and that's what happened. Side by side, going into 1 right here.
Franz Josef Sturm is going to look to pass Ulf Olsen in a battle for 9th and 10th. Then into turn 1, he does get ahead. JC Hay through the pit lane, and Mike Grandy for his damage. Never say never and never give up for Ulf Olsen, but there's a little bit of contact between himself. Franz Josef Sturm is way, way off the road after that. How far off track did Franz Josef Sturm end up? I think he's rejoined. He's back a shot. Get an eye on it in a moment. Oyvind Andersen now behind Ulf Olsen. This is that battle. Gee, I think Olsen just pushes a little wide there. Not too much damage to either car from what we can tell. An incredible amount of grassy runoff on the outside of turn 3. Running lap 4 of 14. They are big, long laps here at Road America. 6.4 kilometers makes it longer than Mount Panorama, but shorter than Spa. Roberto Catalano with a 2-second lead over Mike McCormick at the moment. Really good job on the opening lap by Catalano, and everyone had cold tyres to just pull that 1-second gap that he needed, and then he continues to extend from there. And that's extending the track limits for Oyvind Andersen. Yeah, that could be a bit of Manitoba.
Yeah, no, definitely Manitoba right there. Not quite Saskatchewan, but Manitoba for sure. This track, I mean, you think about it this way. Mentally, you go from race 1, you have a bit of a lull, then you have to try and regain that that same adrenaline rush, regain that same mental fortitude to get back into the race car and to do battle again. It's not the easiest thing to do after a little bit of a break. That's so often why we talk about red flags and getting back to racing and other series. That is a tough thing to do mentally. We've seen some lapses from drivers, more so than we saw in race 1, I'd say.
Four laps completed, and Barry Hill's in third. Still doesn't have a clean lap to his name. He's battling with Ragnar Wisloff, Todd Scholl, Gerhardus Jorgensen. This is the battle of Oyvind Andersen, Peter Holstrom in yellow ahead of Eugene Clark. So this is what a battle of throwback oil liveries potentially. Holstrom versus Clark here. Someone bring out the Gulf oil colours.
Exactly what we've got, what we need right here. Hellstrom right now, kind of mired in this battle just outside the top 10. I will say, though, from 10th on back, you don't see too many large gaps between any of the drivers. 5 seconds separating 6 drivers. And look at that, Addy chasing, or I should say, chasing Bob Cohn. Remember, 0.7, 7/10. That's what we're looking at for the slipstream coming into play, David. Oh boy.
Addy runs just a tiny bit wide there. We know how critical it is to maximize the run off that final corner. Bob Cohen moves across to look to break the slipstream, or at least claim the inside line if they're going to go side by side into turn 1. But that is a move and a weave and another move. Ragnar Wisloff back into the podium positions after qualifying 7th. He's picked them off methodically, one by one, moved up into 3rd. Other battles heading down in towards turn number 1. And Holstrom will cede position to Eugene Clark, who moves ahead of him. Douglas Beasley still just behind and watching on. Oyvind Andersen pulling away from both of them. Get a load of that last lap time from Bob Cohen, though. If he works together with Russ Addy, they can catch back up towards the podium positions. A 156.8 for Bob Cohen, his personal best.
As long as those personal bests keep coming, he's going to have a shot for the podium. Everybody from 3rd on back is in a very tight battle, whether it's from 3rd to 8th or from, I'd say, 10th on down to 15th. Ulf Olsen's kind of having a bit of a lonely race right now, 3 seconds away from drivers in front and behind. This is intense, though.
It is. Tracking multiple battles through the field. This one here, Clark, we saw get ahead. Holstrom facing a little bit of pressure from Douglas Beasley. Franz Josef Sturm, after being well out and wide through the runoff in turn 3 after contact with Ulf Olsen, is closing back in on this group. We thought there wouldn't be too much damage to Franz Josef Sturm, and the lap times suggest his car is A-OK, but what he did lose was about 10 to 15 seconds. and a whole lot of positions that he now will aim to get back.
It is really difficult here, David, to chase in those final few corners. That's why if you do get some momentum going up the hill right here, you almost have to just lick the stamp, send it into one. You got to trust in your car, trust in your ability to get on the brakes a little bit later than everybody else. And look at that. One driver pulls out to attack, but all of a sudden has to think about defending. A lot of indecision made right there by Douglas Beasley. Not a comfortable spot, and opens the door up to Stum with a slide out of one.
Stum careful braking in towards turn 3. Your best opportunity is a good run off 3, exercising a little bit of patience and then using the slipstream on the straight here rather than just dive bombing into the corner right before the straight. And middle of the road for Beasley. Franz Josef Stum will get to the inside in towards turn 5. Bit of a lock-up, I think, from Beasley. Franz Josef Stum remains behind. Both of them a little ungainly through that braking zone. Hurry downs and kettle bottoms.
This is a very fascinating battle to watch right here because, I mean, these drivers are in the back of the field. They're not the class of the competition in today's race, but they're offering us some exciting racing. Elbows are getting out. The attack and the defense mechanisms, the movements that Beasley is making it easier for Hallstrom to pull just a little bit away. And coming out of the kink, another big run to the right side. Coming to Canada corner, it's going to be the inside for Stum, but not close enough.
I've got nothing to back up this feeling that Franz Josef Stum might just have a little bit of aerodynamic damage, costing him straight line speed, making it tough to stick these moves. There's also the fact that it's a DRS train type style of situation. Douglas Beasley's also now getting the slipstream of Peter Hallstrom to try to help him defend that, because as Stum pulls out, suddenly he's punching straight into the air while Beasley is in a double tow behind Eugene Clark and Peter Hallstrom. Heading towards turn 1, though, I think there's enough guts and glory from Franz Josef Stum to make that move stick, and he'll aim forward for a couple more and whatever's possible. Crossing the line then, they were half the race completed, half of it to go. Roberto Catalano out to 4-second lead on Mike McCormick. Ragnar Wisloff catching that by a second on the last lap, aiming for second place. Barry Hills in 4th, ahead of Todd Scholl in 5th. Gardis Jorrison battling with Bob Cohen in 7th, who's pulling back up through the field as well. So drivers to watch, I reckon, Ragnar Wisloff, Bob Cohen, and of course Franz Josef Stum.
Gotta say, I'm quite surprised right there that battling going into turn 1 did not lead to a better defense from Douglas Beasley. He had the slipstream from Peter Hallstrom. It just was not enough. So I was getting ready to completely agree with you. I was surprised that the run for Stum was not as strong heading into Canada corner. It seemed like he lost some straight line momentum, but turned out he was able to get the move done on just a few corners later. So the battle for P2, it still is possible because Ragnar Wisloff is now a second and a few tenths behind Mike McCormick. Remember, we were talking about that battle earlier just at the end of race 1. It really could come into play here.
Yep, it could. You're seeing sort of 157s from this group of drivers, 156s from Roberto Catalano and Ragnar Wisloff, 158s as Stum battles Beasley. It's kind of lap times just underneath 2 minutes for these cars around the 6.4 kilometers of Road America. You can see plenty of battles heading towards turn 5. There's Mike McCormick, then there's Ragnar Wisloff, Barry Hills and Todd Scholl. Scholl, a basically perfect slipstreaming distance, you'd imagine there, and as he breaks into 5, he was just a car length off Barry Hills. Hills has
Jack
got a bit
Turner.
of speed, but it took him until, I think, lap 6 or 7 of this race to have a clean lap that didn't feature an off-track.
Yeah, there's been a lot of off tracks being recorded by timing and scoring right now, and it makes sense, right? There's a lot of space between getting into the grass and getting into either a wall or a tire barrier. It almost leads to this psychological kind of feeling that you can push the limits just a tad more than you would be able to at a track that had walls that were closer to the racing surface. What we're seeing here, though, they're taking advantage of all this runoff area, and they're giving us a good show, at least right here in the top 5.
Yeah, I think we're about to start 5 laps to go, and there's still plenty of show to happen. Franz Josef Sturm down the inside of Peter Hallström at Canada Corner. Another move made for Franz Josef Sturm on his fight through the field. Gives an opportunity to Douglas Beasley here. Sturm's almost far enough ahead that he's almost breaking the slipstream that could leave Hallström vulnerable to Douglas Beasley. Todd Scholl now ahead of Barry Hills in towards turn 1. Hills in position to strike back, though, right underneath the rear wing of the driver, now in 4th place, Todd Scholl. And here is Beasley with his dose of slipstream. Peter Hallström might lose 2 spots in 3 corners, side by side into 1. Car on the inside usually wins here. Hallström had just a tiny bit of a movement. Beasley moves ahead. Todd Scholl in his newly gained 4th position must be defended. He's planted his flag, but now he's got to defend his castle.
Yeah, this would be a better result for Todd Scholl than it was last race. Again, it's all about damage limitation. Oh, goodness me, right through the grass went Barry Hills, and somehow he still came out of it with momentum and peeks to the outside. A little bit of a defense, making that 35 car as wide as possible was Todd Scholl as they run to the carousel. A bit more of a gap being built by Scholl. I wouldn't say a bit. That was a large gap that was built coming into the carousel.
Well, if Jack Turner's your American racing driver, Barry Hills is your British darts champion. And he is looking for a bullseye, targeting the slipstream of Todd Scholl. Just up the road from them, Ragnar Wislof's still just within the second of Mike McCormick. So this is what everyone wants from 60 Plus Racing Adventures. When we speak to the drivers, they say, I don't maybe quite have the speed or the experience with sim racing or anything to compete for championships out there in the rest of the world of sim racing, but in a league like this, I just want good racing. You want to race against the same people week after week, so you know what you're up against, you know how hard you can push each other, and you know everyone's going to give you a little bit of respect, and that's what we're getting across all of these battles. For 2nd, for 4th, for 9th, for 12th. Peter Hallström, unfortunately, is not going to feature in that battle against Franz Josef Sturm or Douglas Beasley, because I think those two have come together, Hallström and Beasley. Let's take a look. Beasley's wide in Canada Corner, spins back. Hallström T-bones him, a nasty crash.
Again, you can see the brakes were being held right there, and there's nowhere to go, right? This is one of the corners of this track that you do feel a little bit claustrophobic compared to everywhere else, just because of where the walls are. Not much room and not much time to make a decision.
Well, Barry Hills has struck 180 because he's back in front of Todd Scholl in this ever-going battle, and it shows that these two drivers are close enough to each other that whatever advantage the slipstream gives you is greater than the pace difference between them organically. They can continue to fight, one leapfrogging the other. It will be about minimizing mistakes and keeping their wits about them in these closing laps of race number 2. Roberto Catalano's looking for a clean sweep of Road America. Ragnar Wislof is looking to go one better than 3rd on the podium as he did in race 1. Barry Hills and Todd Scholl. Todd Scholl could do with improving on his race 1 result. That's what he's going to aim for. Looking to the inside of Canada Corner on Barry Hills. He moves ahead, but there's an emerging threat for the both of them. Bob Cohen is heading back to a top 4.
I was also going to say, you see that dust in front that was flying up just in front of these three? It was because Mike McCormick took a little bit of a dip of the left side tires, I think, into the gravel. Now only half a second separates drivers second and third in the order as we see this third place battle really start to heat up with 3 laps to go.
Scholl's running middle of the road, trying to break the toe to Barry Hills, who doesn't follow him. Bob Cohen follows the slipstream of Barry Hills, a 3-way fight, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Every position in the top 5 is up for grabs except for that race lead, where it looks like Roberto Catalano still has the fastest lap of the race. So can he make an absolute sweep of it? We'll wait and see. Cohen, I think, had a great opportunity here, but it's side-by-side for Ulf Olsen and Oyvind Andersen. Olsen coming back through the field as well. Moves ahead of Andersen. Bob Cohen to the inside of turn 5. And that is perfect from Cohen. He had a great qualifying performance. He got escorted off the track a little bit by Barry Hills early on in this race, who gives him a fair and respectful amount of space this time around.
Yeah, and look at this. This is going to be a really good run for Anderson right there. Took a wide a wide entry, I should say, in turn 5. Did not get the exit that he was looking for. This is just within the top 10. A good battle between he and Ulf Olsen, driver of that lime machine. Can we call it a lime? A lemon right there? It looks like a certain soda.
It could be a Citron.
This is true. It could definitely be a Citron machine. A lot of green in this field. Oh, look at that. Barry Hill's taking a dive down the inside.
Yeah, he was looking for revenge with Bob Cohen, but it wasn't going to happen. Cohen remains in 5th. Todd Scholl up ahead of them in 4th, and this is that battle 2nd and 3rd. Wislof's positioned perfectly off the final corner. McCormick instantly defensive, but there's only so much you can do on a long straight like this when Ragnar Wislof has 5 kilometers an hour more, moves his nose into 2nd place, beginning the penultimate lap. They're 6.5 seconds behind the race leader, Roberto Catalano, but slowly Wislof's worked his way up through this field, 7th on the grid, to 2nd place.
Not necessarily the worst place to be as you go down this run to turn number 5. We'll see in the slipstream. How was the exit off of that corner? It was better for Wislof. Still in that draft. Looks to the outside. A bit of a defense right there from Wislof. And a lockup way deep into the corner.
Front lockup wide of the apex, but still kept it on the road, and Wislof stays in 2nd. McCormick could stay close, bide his time for a move on the final lap. So much power to that slipstream. If you can stay within 6/10, that's got to be the goal for McCormick right now, who's 0.5 behind Wislof. Todd Scholl up in 4th behind them. Also only about 0.5 of a second ahead of Bob Cohen. So into these final laps, there will be so many battles for 60 Plus Racing Adventures. This battle, the next battle, Olsen versus Andersen could go side by side again at any point as well. It's what we want to see.
I love the battling we're finally seeing between these two drivers. It was advertised for us in a positive way in race number 1, and we really have seen some clean, hard racing and a good bit of gamesmanship happening in race number 2 as Catalano is about to take the white flag for the 2nd time here in today's activities. I don't know. Does McCormick have anything? We'll have to find out. This battle, though, is raging just outside, or right inside the top 10, I should say.
Andersen wide through Canada corner. Jack Turner looking across back over under, ends up right behind him underneath his rear wing. They're soon going to see the white flag to begin their final lap of the race. Ulf Olsen's pulled away from them. Franz Josef Sturm just behind as well. Andersen in a defensive position. Jack Turner moving to the left. Will have to go around the outside of turn 1 if he can't clear him by the braking zone. Jack Turner has his nose in front, but he's got the outside. It's one hand behind your back, but with some level of advantage. And Andersen bombs it into turn 1, runs it off a little bit wide. Jack Turner goes over under again, gets forced off the track at turn 2, keeps the inside for 3, boxes Oyvind Andersen back towards his teammate Franz Josef Sturm. They could play some team games here on the final lap of the race. Wislof's broken the toe for 2nd. Todd Scholl's got some work to do in 4th. And Andersen will cover the inside versus Franz Josef Sturm. Jack Turner with some dramas and problems.
Yeah, Turner with a big problem right there. That is majorly problematic for him, but that just makes this a 2-car race for a top 10 position right here at the tail end of it. Anderson with a little bit up front. Let's take a look at the replay. I mean, it's drafting again, but
Yeah, Anderson's kind of tried to bump draft him, and that does not work. That's not what these cars are about.
I have no idea.
Jack Turner's not particularly happy about that contact, and it's sustained and unnecessary contact as well. Roberto Catalano's looking for the checkered flag for a perfect sweep of Road America. It's 2 poles, it's every lap led, and it's 2 wins for Roberto Catalano at the halfway point of the season. He's in picture for the championship, and this is a champion's drive.
Yeah, fantastic drive from Catalano. This is still the raging battle going on for 10th place. I don't think Stoom has enough. It's going to be a fairly solid run up for Anderson. And I'll tell you what, Todd Shull, yeah, I think he's now seeing a swap of positions in the championship standings. What a job by Catalano today.
Yeah, absolutely. He's come so prepared and been perfect at every single step. Jack Turner is going to cross the checkered flag, and the 2 drivers we wait on, Grandy and Peter Holstrom. Douglas Beasley, I think, parked it, as did JC Hay. Yeah, Scholl did manage to hold on to that 4th place, though. Bob Cohen not able to get close enough to him, having to battle past Barry Hills.
This has got to be a very, very boring last couple corners for Peter Holstrom. It could have been a lot more for him in this race as well before having those issues later on in this race. It's going to be the last driver to take the checkered flag while running on track. Only 15 cars are going to finish this race.
Yeah, 1 or 2 drivers missing in race 2 compared to race 1. I think overall it was cleaner in race 2. But did lose a few from the lead lap. Everyone's taken the checkered flag. Roberto Catalano's winning margin, 5.9 seconds, as Ragnar Wisloff, in fact, takes the fastest lap of the race on the final lap of the race, a 1:55.967, one of the only 1:55s we've seen. Don't think anyone got into that kind of lap times in qualifying either, so Wisloff saving his very, very best for last. Mike McCormick in 3rd, then Todd Scholl 4th, Bob Cohen 5th, Barry Hill 6th, Gerhardus Jorrison there in 7th, Russ Addy 8th, Ulf Olsen 9th, and Oyvind Anderson in 10th. Ahead of Franz Josef Sturm, Eugene Clark, Jack Turner, Mike Grandy. We saw Peter Holstrom take the checkered flag. Douglas Beasley 4 laps back. JC Hay only completing 4 laps in this race. We'll look to speak to some of our drivers again as we look to wrap coverage.
Drivers that can
Dylan Coyle
me.
will speak to Roberto Catalano.
Yes, speaking with Roberto Catalano right now. We interrupted you mid-discussion. Hey, another good race for you. What were you talking about with Ragnar there?
Yes, I win the second race is similar to the first. I was a good start and finish first. It's difficult in this track not commit mistakes. I tended to do it, and I was lucky.
So what about Road America in general do you think works well for you and your style of driving?
It's a great track. I think that Road America is a great track. We ran Monday in Formula 4, and there are more slipstream. I don't like slipstream. In Super Formula Light, there is not so much slipstream. I like that, but the track is fantastic. It's fantastic because there are any type of course. It's fantastic.
That's awesome. And hey, championship, it may have just swung into your favor with a points advantage. Your championship rival and I would assume, former leader of the standings finished 6th and 4th. So helps you out here.
Yes, I was in good position, but the championship is long, and there are 7 drivers very fast. It's soon to talk about that. Thank you.
Well, congratulations once again, sweeping the day, Roberto Catalano.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Great conversation with him right there. And David, I think you're going to be taking Ragnar Wisloff in P2.
Yeah, the full podium standing by to chat with us post race 2. Ragnar Wisloff going 1 position better in the second race. Not going any positions better in qualifying, though. What happened to start things off?
No, it was. It's a track which requires, I guess, a lot of precision, and I was just, I guess, not concentrating enough. So I ran wide in first in turn 1, and then I ran wide in Canada as well, and got an off track. So that was it. I had to rely on the banker lap. But it was, it is what it is.
Going back to the bank then, and gave you an opportunity to really practice your racecraft with a lot of moves through the field for 5 positions gained, and then taking the fastest lap of the race on the final lap. What was that just the full manifestation of your power, or were you really trying to make sure you bagged that accolade?
It was certainly good fun in the beginning with the cars in front. They slipped away a little bit in the beginning, and then I managed to catch up with them through some, I don't know, there was a little bit of fighting up ahead, so I think maybe that helped me a little bit. But this is what is good fun. I'm not going to win this championship, so it's important to have fun in the individual races, and I think this was good. I enjoyed that. I'm really hot, sweating a lot, but it was good fun.
And what's been going on in the world of racing for Ragnar Wisloff? Track days, attending any things? How have you been indulging your passion?
Actually, I'm going on a track day on Sunday at Rudskogen. There really hasn't been any opportunities until now, but I'm looking forward to that. There is good, and should be a lot of cars for the Porsche Club to enjoy. So
we'll enjoyed your race today, and we hope you'll enjoy that. And we'll see you again soon for RaceSpot coverage of 60+ racing adventures, Ragnar.
Yeah, thanks for that, David, and hope to speak to you again sometime.
Could y'all hear me now?
Ragnar Wisloff finished second, just ahead of Mike McCormick, who we can hear. Can you hear us, Mike?
Yes, I can hear you.
Well, on the podium is, I guess, always a good place to be.
Oh, yeah, I didn't expect it. I've been sick all week, so I didn't know how I'd do. Excuse my voice.
Qualifying for everyone compared to Roberto Catalano wasn't particularly close, but for you compared to the rest of the field, 1/10 quicker than Bob Cohen, 1/10 quicker than Todd Scholl, it was really competitive for, I think, everyone sort of second through to 10th.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite tracks. I usually do fairly well here. But, I mean, the league has gotten really, really close. It's like the top 3 or 4, and then the rest of us have great battles.
And you're in a really good position for a long point in that race, but apparently no denying the speed that Ragnar Wisloff had as he came through the field and came to hunt you down in the closing stages.
Yeah, I mean, he's faster. I realize that. And I get hot and I start coughing with this sickness I got, and that slowed me down a little bit. Not that I'm saying I would beat him, because I wouldn't, but it did affect me a little bit.
And Bob Cohen also started with you up top there and then dropped back. Did you see what was happening in your mirrors on the opening laps?
No, I didn't, to be honest. I haven't seen him in practice all week, so I mean, I was surprised he did as well as he did qualifying.
He came in and showed a whole lot of pace. We're midway for the season here, Mike. So you've been long-time 60-plus racing adventures competitor. What are you looking to get out of this season, and what do you think keeps so many drivers coming back season after season?
I think the racing makes people come back, and y'all's broadcast, which we all love. It's just a fun league. I used to be in the 2K Skippy League, and it was a fun league too.
Well, best of wishes with your health. Hopefully a podium makes you feel just swell, and a great way to finish the 2 races from Road America.
Yeah, I feel a lot better.
All right, we'll catch you around, Mike. Thank you so much for coming to chat with us.
I'll have a good one. Appreciate your broadcast.
Well, Dylan, 2 awesome races. We hear from the drivers exactly what we expected. They love the style of racing that they get and the fair camaraderie and battling that they get from this car in 60-plus racing adventures.
Indeed, my friend. It was a good bit of racing that we saw all throughout the field today. And, although we didn't get a battle for the win of the race, I can say with a fairly confident remark that we saw good racing, hard battling all throughout the rest of the field. Catalano was just on a different level today, and it just goes to show you how good these drivers are, and then that just extra level above, it just blows everybody away.
Well, you better go get a cabinet maker. 2 more trophies for Roberto Catalano in 60-plus racing adventures. RaceSpotTV will be bringing you live coverage of the season finale September 3rd at Monza. Make sure you're following RaceSpotTV wherever you're watching, because we could be heading towards an Italian champion at that famous Italian track at the end of this season. You'll have to join us and find out next time we cover 60-plus racing adventures.